I believe ultimately the reason we want to do art is to enjoy ourselves and have fun, right? That's why for today's sketchbook ideas, I took a little bit of all the things I like doing the most in my sketchbook and combined them into these very satisfying pages, because I think if you're having fun and if you're enjoying every single bit of the process, it's going to make it easier for you to keep with your sketchbook practice and to, of course, fill a sketchbook. So, yeah, that's it. That's it. I just want to show these to you. So let's get creative. Here's my sketchbook. And the first thing I'm going to do is trace some circles. Of course, you can use a compass too, but I used a roll of tape. I bundled up my circles, offsetting them a little bit to the top of the page. And then I changed my mind about the placement of the seventh circle, but that's okay. I just redrew it and I erased the unnecessary lines. So now I'm bringing up my watercolors because I have found that for me, it is the most satisfying medium to use in my sketchbook. And that's for me. I mean, it doesn't have to be for you, but I encourage you to try it and see which feels best for you. I started filling every little space created by the intersecting circles, but as you can see, I'm using very watered down watercolors. So even though I'm painting within the lines, my colors are blending. And of course, this is my intention by using such watered down pigment. I helped everything dry a little bit with a heat gun, and then I outlined each circle with a white acrylic marker. Then I outlined the white lines I just created with the black pen. And here's where I started to apply centangle techniques, in which creating repetitive patterns helped me focus on one part of the drawing at a time. I'm just going to take the pattern ideas and then tie them to my own creativity. When all the white circles were outlined, I had a bunch of irregular shapes as a result, and I started to draw a flower inside of each. The flowers are all different and have different amounts of petals, but they are in a way the same. I repeat the same motion on each space and then fill the result in small negative spaces with my black marker. After I was done filling all of the spaces with flowers, I used the pencil to draw a bunch of lines coming down from the circles so that they look like balloons. And I was going to have a silhouette of a kid holding them, Bansky inspired. But at the end, I decided to make it more playful and have one of my characters on there. So I have little Yolki holding the balloons. I outlined the drawing I made, erased the pencil guidelines, and then I painted it with watercolor. And this is our first page of the day. Yay! Gotta tell you, making this first one was amazing because it felt like play. Engaging, easy, and of course, so satisfying. So this page really fueled me for the rest of the day. Moving on to the second one, I taped a border for this one, and now that I've finished, I can tell you that I probably will do the things in a different order for this idea, but it still worked. What I did was draw a wavy random line in the middle of my page, and then I drew a bunny holding onto it. Erased the pencil, and then with an acrylic marker, I redrew the line the bunny was holding onto and drew a few more random lines that intersected with each other. So if I would do this again, I would probably just do the lines first and then draw the character on top, just to keep that part of the process looser. I helped the marker dry with the heat gun, and then I decided to paint everything with watercolors. I was a little worried that the water would reactivate the marker, but it didn't. Or at least not that I could tell, because I used yellows and greens for the watercolor background. Again, here maybe reverse the steps, paint the whole background, then draw the lines with the acrylic marker and then the character. I mean, it will work either way. I'm just saying maybe I should have used that more logical order, because I did have to go over some of the green lines that got stained from the watercolor. With everything dry, it was time for the black marker again, and again I outlined the acrylic lines, which resulted in creating these irregular shapes. Then again, filled the space with petals, but this time I'm not gonna do flowers. I'm just gonna stem some petals from the angles of the shapes, so some of the irregular spaces will have two bunches. Also, I remember I had these markers that Ohuhu had sent me and I hadn't tried yet, so I chose to draw my lines with color. And this time I'm also having veining on each leaf, so yeah, very different. I kept filling up the spaces following this repetitive process that again is comforting and relaxing as it shifts your attention from other thoughts and leads you to focus on every stroke. So little by little, I filled the page, and I don't know if it's the paper, but these markers feel dry, so don't run out to get them. You could use any marker or even colored pencils if you want color lines too. I'm not sold on these at all. The end result looks great, but I did not love working with them, if that makes sense. And I mean, it could be the paper, yes, because this is very thick, hands-on watercolor paper, but yeah, overall, not loving these. Anyhow, filled the space with leaves, and I thought the effect would be nicer if I added shadows, so I mixed a darker green and started to apply it at the bottom of the petal bunches and next to the acrylic lines as shadows. I enjoyed this part a lot. It really transformed my drawing, and I noticed I did not need to be precise with it. Like, I made some mistakes and it still worked well. Then I also painted some shadows on the bunny and adjusted the drawing of its face with a marker, removed the tape, and that's done. Again, so satisfying and relaxing. For the next one, I also wanted a border, so I taped one using a different washi tape, and then I activated my watercolors to start painting. I'm using blues, purples, and pinks for this one. I use the colors in sections painting clouds, but I'm keeping it super loose and again satisfying, with no pressure to paint something perfect, just laying color on paper. About halfway through, I helped it dry, just to keep the color from mixing too much, and then I covered the rest of the page and added a little bit more pigment where I thought it needed it. I helped it dry again, and this was the result. This time I drew a little paper plane on top of the background. I just love paper boats, paper planes on drawings. I like it. It's there. And again, I decided to use the markers and loosely match them to the background, drawing these squiggly circles on top, just stacking them on, and you'll see that they are pretty irregular and so not perfect, but they get the job done, both for my drawing and for my attention, which was locked in creating all of these doodles. I matched the repetitive, wiggle doodle circles to the color underneath as best as I could. Continued filling the page with the doodles, not worrying about getting them on the plane I drew because I knew now I was going to paint on top later. And then I used the thickest of my black liners to go over the edge of these shapes, outlining the color blocks so that they would look more like clouds. I also outlined the page following the tape, and I made a mistake, but that's okay. Of course, I had to outline the plane too, and I drew some lines marking its trajectory. Then I removed the tape, and once I did, I had a better vision of how the page was looking, so once more I thought adding a little bit of shadows would elevate it. I painted some, added some highlights with the white acrylic marker, and then I also painted a shadow underneath the plane. And here's how this page turned out. This one was a fast one, so if you want something a little bit more playful and casual but still very mindful, these round shapes will do the trick because they are easy to draw, and even the wonkiest ones look okay once the page is finished. For the next one, I needed to draw a grid. I made mine 2 by 2 centimeters. Maybe I should have made them and 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch, but I went with centimeters and I don't think it really matters. Just draw a grid. With the grid done, I was going to make the same mistake of drawing something on top first, but then I decided that first I did not want to break like the rhythm of drawing the centangle, like the strokes. I didn't want to stop them. And also this one could look good without anything added to it. So for this pattern, we need to create these angular coils, which I drew in the middle of each square, keeping them away from all of the edges. They are floating in the middle of each square, if that makes sense. And this is just a repeat pattern. You just have to make sure that the coils face the right way. The straight edge where you start needs to be on one side so they can work together in sets of 4 like a flower almost. And I gotta tell you, I'm so grateful this is a video and you can see what I mean, because this is really hard to explain. You need an even number of parallel lines, both horizontally and vertically, and I noticed I had 9 lines going down on my grid, so at the end I just did not fill that row, but that was okay. I thought, I will figure it out later. Erased all the pencil guidelines and then I taped the border around my swirls and started painting. This time I was going for a galaxy effect, keeping the black and darkest colors to the edges and making it lighter towards the center. Now, time to connect all of the shapes, and I do this by drawing these diagonal and straight lines joining the edges of the swirls, which creates this elongated diamond shape, which I then fill with black. And here again, so happy this is a video and not like a spoken tutorial because I would have no idea how to explain this to you with only words. Like, I'm lost for words, literally. First row done, then the second one, and then I went back to create an additional one in between those two. I needed the first two rows to figure out where to place this one since it's a little offset. Filled the entire of the page like this, and then I turned the sketchbook on its side to do the same thing horizontally. And as you can see, as I add the diamonds on the different direction, I'm creating these stars. Once I was done, I took the tape off, and honestly, I was gonna add like a little alien or a spaceship on top of this, but I liked it as it was, so I left it alone and moved on. Again, taping a border, and I start by drawing a paintbrush, which I outline and add details to it too. With the drawing ready, I use my watercolors in my favorite way, and I start painting curved lines coming from the brush, filling all of the space in rainbow order. Now, because I normally don't leave enough space for the purple, this time I did the red line first, the purple second, and then the green in the middle so I would be able to distribute all of my colors evenly. Then I let them bleed into each other as they dried, and apparently I was too immersed in the process and I didn't notice it was time for a break. Because suddenly my pop was almost on top of my sketchbook. She was done with patiently waiting from the side, so we took a lunch break.
¿No más trabajar? Oh my God. ¿Vamos a abajo? Sí.
After our break, everything was dry. So I painted the negative space with black, and I used very diluted black paint as well to paint the paintbrush. Then help everything dry and time to have fun with my pens. This is something I really enjoy. I don't know why I like it so much. I outlined the dried watercolors following the little curves created by pigment. I even enjoy when cauliflowers form so I can mimic their shapes. And after I outline all of the naturally occurring lines, I create other ones echoing what I have on paper. So it's like I love this little collab between the medium and my own creativity. When I like the composition, I just stop adding lines. Then I took the tape off, and here's that result. For the next one, I just drew random ovals and circles, filling out the page, not really thinking about it. When the page was full, I started to stare at it because I wanted to see if I could add a little something to it. And I thought this bean shape right here could be a panda bear because of the way the shapes were intersecting. I can't really explain what I saw. This is how my brain works. I started shading some of the areas, and honestly, as I did, it looked more like a guinea pig, but I carried on thinking it would be a panda. I used the marker to outline all of the irregular shapes, using a thinner one for the segments that intersected within my character, and then I erased all of the pencil from underneath, so time to start painting. I feel once I paint something in rainbow order, I always want to do it again. So yeah, that's what I did. I filled the spaces in rainbow order in a diagonal, and this time I am definitely staying within the lines. Then I went back to fill all of the intersecting spaces with different colors mixed from the base ones. Then I used black for my little guy in hopes it would look more like a panda, but no, it's time to admit this is a rodent. I liked how everything looked, and this was satisfying to fill in, but it seemed disconnected. So that was the perfect excuse to use one of my favorite satisfying and grounding techniques, rounding the intersections. I've mentioned before this is called neurographical art, and I don't know the science behind it, but it really gives your brain a rest. If you're feeling undecisive or anxious about something, give it a try. Like, think of your concern, allow yourself several deep centering breaths, and then do something like this for about 30 minutes. You'll feel calmer, I promise. So yeah, I finished rounding my corners, got the satisfaction from it, and here's my result. A little goofy with the hamster trapped in between the bubbles, I must admit, but I like it. Moving on, and this time I'm going straight into create a cute animal, so I drew the shape of a cat. Outlined it, polishing the drawing a little bit, and then erased the pencil, and got my watercolors to start painting lines around it. This is a lion, of course, and I'm using its mane to practice more repetitive patterns. I'm keeping my palette limited to yellows, ochre, and orange, but you could definitely go wild with it. And now I'm thinking I would have loved using purples and pinks. Oh well, next time. I continued going around its face, painting this irregular mane, which I let dry as I painted the face. And I used the watercolors to change the cat into a lion more by making some areas of the face darker than others. Everything dried, so I outlined it with a marker, and I also started to divide it into sections loosely based on the paint segments I already created underneath. Then in each, I drew ovals, trying to make them smaller and narrower towards the face. My original idea was to alternate all of the lines, having one of them be full of solid ovals and the other one having the negative space painted black. Did that make sense? I hope it did. But I made a mistake on the second row, and I decided, no worries. I just carried on, and I just made sure that I would have two strips that were the same next to each other elsewhere for balance. Drawing and coloring in these ovals felt fantastic. It was a brain break. And yeah, that's it for this page, a cute Centangle lion. And that is also our seventh and last page for the week. I truly hope you try at least one of these. They were super relaxing. They really pumped me about coming back to YouTube this week. I had so much fun creating these and I was very relaxed. So let me know if you would like a second part of these most satisfying sketchbook ideas because I would love to create one for you. This was very enjoyable. With that, I hope I'll see you next week with a brand new video. Have the most wonderful day. Bye!